Hello, not so gentle men and ladies. This is my custom built paintball Magfed Galil Ace. As you can see here, it very much resembles an AK. However, the controls and what makes this a Galil Ace are on this side, which is a charging handle on the left-hand side, which is much easier to actuate than flipping over. Obviously, not a showstopper, not a huge deal, but it is fully functional, and I will show exactly how this works in a second. And then over here, we also have our traditional style safety lever, not on the other side of the paintball marker in this case. We also have a paddle loader for rocking in those mags like so, right? Sits very, very nicely in there. And we can see the open bolt over here on the side. So this is clear, right? Nothing in the mag, as well as the air tank is actually empty. So we can go ahead, boom. So you can see that bolt right over here, and I can go ahead and show it moving freely in there with just the spring tension. But obviously when there's some HPA or CO2 in here, it kicks a lot more. So I'm gonna go into full detail, show this on the desk, and talk about what it took to build this. All right, glad you can join us up there. So now you can see everything from a top-down view. So let's kind of just go butt to tip on what this is exactly feature to feature. So firstly, this is a 3D printed stock, which is going on over here on top of the air tank in the back directly. So it's a very, very tight fit. And basically I can get this off by just screwing it. And if this breaks, I can always print out another one. So it's not a huge deal to actually do. Again, the air tank right now is not pressurized, so not really worried about that. As you can see, this is a teeny tiny First Strike tank that I was able to find, actually not at a bad price on eBay. And I got this tank actually for a friend because I'm working on a self-defense non-lethal build right now for him. Very, very similar. A couple of differences, including this air tank, which is nice and small, not really for paintball games. But really, it's for self-defense. In that case, you're going to get less shots, but it is nice and compact, which is really, really cool. Kind of want to get one of these for myself. If they make one, especially with a 4,500 PSI, will be amazing. So this is, I believe, a 9 CI tank. I believe there are 8 ones also, but this is very, very nice and compact compared to your 13 CI regular. Over here, we have a drop-down ASA. So a lot of paintball guns, especially the older ones, will have kind of a air line that goes through the grip, and then you have to connect the tank over here. I believe when this gun was originally manufactured, that's what it had. However, now we have the airline going through the body, and instead of having the tube that went through here and then again connecting the tank to the bottom of the grip, it's going through the body into the stock directly. And so this is a drop down stock connector. Instead of being right here in the middle, it's actually a drop down, as we can see here, a little bit easier to get your face behind the gun without bumping into your mask. That's why I like the drop down ASA over here. But if you're not wearing a mask, not a huge deal. Anyhow, moving on to the main body. So the main body is a MCS Tornado. So basically take the internals out of a original classic X7 Tippmann paintball gun, and you can go ahead and drop it into here. There are a couple of differences cosmetically to the body, as well as the material, all aluminum. Really awesome. It has a very good weight to it. In fact, I think this might be heavier than my actual firearms, which is pretty crazy. But it does work really, really well, and it should be very, very durable and rugged. The grip is exactly the same from the original X7. And so because of that, you can see this tiny, tiny little pin over here. That actually gets pressurized with air. I'm going to go ahead and flip this over so you can see that. There is a tube in the back, which I kind of like because it adds to like AK safety selector look and feel. Obviously this isn't an AK build, it's a Galil build, but it's still cool to have that. So this is actually going from the regulator inside of the paintball marker and then going straight into the grip, which pressurizes this. So if you have your trigger at just the right amount, like say that much amount of creep, basically in theory, this little pin should push air against the trigger, and then you will basically be bump firing automatically. So it does kind of a fallout thingy, but not really. I can't really explain it so well. It's called a response trigger if you want to look more into that. It's really, really cool, and it's one of the things that the Tornado allows you to still do if you have an X7 Classic that has that functionality. This would be more so for paintball than self-defense. I already showed the paddle release of the AK mags, but basically what these mags are just simple MCS magazines. They are 20 rounders, and you can get these with either round ball or shape projectile springs in here. I believe this is a shape projectile spring. So basically that allows me to shoot first strike rounds. So the bolt, which is in the front over here, is a shape projectile front bolt. Would allow for the paintballs that are shaped, which I'll go ahead and show an image on screen, to go ahead and be used. Those rounds are 2 times farther in terms of distance for shooting a paintball compared to a round ball, and 25 times more accurate if you're getting official first strikes. Now, there are some self-defense rounds as well, if that's something you want to look into. I do plan on making a future video just talking about paintball guns for self-defense in general. So if that's something you want to see, definitely subscribe to the channel and you'll see that in an upcoming video. Moving on, so we have our charging handle. This is actually an extended one that comes with the Tornado, or at least it should. So it's nice and maneuverable, huge and easy to use, so no complaints there. I do like it, and I do want to add like some kind of 3D printed circular thing like Zelenko kind of has. That would be awesome to see and have on this, but it's not a necessity. Essentially, once you have air running through the gun, automatically the bolt is going to stay back. So you're never going to be in a situation where even after changing the magazines, you have to rack it unless you're out of air, in which case you're screwed anyway. So yeah, basically it's a nice thing to have, and you do have to do it at the very beginning. Once you add air into the gun, you do have to cock it once, but that's it. You're never going to need to until you need to refill on air, which you can always just fill the air tank directly over here through the air fill up. So moving on to more features on here. Oh, let's talk about the scope. I don't want to skip over that. It's a simple red dot. I believe I got on Amazon for super cheap. I made a short about this, so I'll link to that. I'm not sure what the price on this is these days. I got it years back, but it's nice as green and red. Obviously, you can only zero on one of those colors, but it does work for paintball. Works very well. Nice and rugged. It's definitely taken a few hits. Still works fine. So that's awesome. Moving on. So over here in the front sight mount, I actually have a Picatinny section where I could have put the red dot over here, but it wasn't necessary, so I didn't do that. But it is still cool to see and have, so I'm just keeping that on there. Then the front shroud itself. So the front shroud was originally with wood furniture, which has been swapped out for 3D printed parts over here. So the bottom part of the shroud is completely 3D printed, I believe just PLA Plus or PLA, and same thing for this top part over here. Honestly, I want to make this a little bit smaller just to have some of the rails match up a little bit better. Right now, just meh. But for now, it definitely works. There is no operational features through here, like there's no gas that's going back into the marker or anything like that. That's not a necessity for these types of paintball guns. So instead of that, basically the barrel is the only functional part, which has a threaded shroud, which has a threaded barrel at the very, very tip here, so I can go ahead and change out muzzle devices and muzzle brakes as well. Or put on a suppressor. Maybe we'll do that in the future. Maybe make the shroud a little bit longer if we do, because basically this is the perfect height to fit with the top part over here. Otherwise, if I wanted to, I could technically just make both of these a little bit longer. So I can make the bottom shroud longer and this part longer, push this furniture even further up the line, and then, yeah, basically we'll just cover more of the area. This is enough for me, and I would love to make an M-Lock version in the future. However, I just think that the Picatinny is going to be a little bit tougher and survive for a hit or two compared to M-Lock, a little bit thinner. I'm not sure how well that will hold up, at least being PLA. Maybe with a different material that would work out. So yeah, that is the full build over here. If you want to see this being shot in a future video, let me know and subscribe. Hope to make some awesome content with this, as well as, again, I'm going to make a video all about burnout alternatives or self-defense alternative paintball guns, what you can use for that as well. So subscribe. Hope to see you in an upcoming video. Thanks for watching.